Doing Different with Kimmy, a podcast for women rediscovering their voice after 50. Welcome to Doing Different with Kimmy, a podcast born from the heart, created for women who are ready to reclaim their voice, rewrite their story, and rediscover the vibrant, powerful soul within. If you're a woman over 50, navigating the shifting sands of midlife, empty nesting, or personal reinvention, this space was made for you. You are not alone, you are seen, you are heard, and you matter deeply. Why doing different? Because life after 50 isn't about fading into the background. It's about stepping into the spotlight of your own life. It's about doing things differently, on your terms, with your wisdom, and with a whole lot of grace and grit. On this podcast, we explore midlife transitions, the messy, beautiful, and liberating process of letting go and starting fresh. We discuss empty nesting, what happens when the house quiets down and your soul starts speaking louder. We also discuss creative rebirth, whether you're writing your first book, launching a podcast, or simply dreaming again. We celebrate your courage. And we also discuss spiritual and emotional growth, the gentle unfolding of who you are becoming, and the sacredness of this season. Community and connection with real conversations with authors, podcasters, and everyday women who are doing different is what it's all about. What you'll hear in each episode is a warm invitation to sit down with me, Kimmy, and dive into meaningful discussions. We talk about the things that matter: identity, purpose, creativity, healing, and joy. We laugh, we reflect, and we honor the journey of becoming. You'll meet women who've reinvented themselves after divorce, retirement, loss, or burnout. You'll hear from those who found new passions, started businesses, or simply learned to love themselves more deeply. You belong. My guest today is Wendy Battles. She is the host of Reinvention Rebels podcast. She shares stories of brave and unapologetic women between 50 to 90 who have reinvented themselves in bold ways. She loves using her voice for good. She loves the opportunity to celebrate, illuminate, and elevate midlife and older women. In a world that doesn't value age and wisdom, especially in women, shining a light on the extraordinary ways women are reinventing themselves is pure joy for her. She also loves using the opportunity to light a path for others and herself about what's possible as we age. She finds that our experiences can be as exciting and remarkable as we decide we want them to be. No ceiling here, just pure possibilities. She is a joy spreader and an inspirer with a healthy dose of fierce. Wendy believes in being herself. She likes to remind others that if you show up authentically and comfortably in your own skin, you naturally can connect with others and build meaningful relationships. Social media doesn't have to be as hard as we think once we find our own way. Welcome to my podcast, Wendy. How are you today?
I'm great, and I really appreciate the invitation to join you. I'm very excited about the conversation we're going to have today.
Me too, and it's so nice to meet you. I've so excited about this meeting today, and I'm wondering if you can share your journey, and what sparked your passion for creating a podcast that highlights stories of brave women who are reinventing themselves. I think it's from like 50 to 90 years old, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You have got it exactly. And it's interesting because it's not like I ever said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a podcaster. I never had that thought. And I'm guessing maybe you didn't either.
No, no.
Ironically, I have listened to podcasts for many years. I love podcasts. And I would listen as I was driving to and from work or when I was out on a walk, all kinds of different podcasts. And I, gosh, it was about 6 years ago. I was in my mid 50s because now I'm 60. So I probably was, I think at the time, 54. And I was in one of those moments that I've had at several different touch points, sort of in every decade of my 30s, my 40s, my 50s. Really a lot of questioning about what am I meant to do? What was I sent here on this earth to do with my life? How can I serve others? How can I have a greater purpose? I've always had this sort of seeking spirit, trying to
Right.
find that. And I thought I found it in my 30s and 40s, but it ended up not being it. I guess maybe it was it for a time, but
Yeah.
not for like a lifetime. Not that everything is, some things are just for a season, as we know, sometimes
Right.
right for longer. And at this particular touch point, Kim, I have been asked at work. So I have a full-time job. I work at Yale University, and I've been asked to be on a panel for a group called the Future Leaders of Yale, and it was about personal branding. I was really thinking, why
Okay.
did they ask me to be on this panel? Okay. I was like, what do I know about that? But interestingly, it got me on this journey. It's funny how things happen and we don't always understand the why of things happening until later on we can see that maybe, is it divinely ordered? I don't know. But I will say that in this case, by being asked to be on this podcast, I started listening to podcasts about personal branding because I needed to have something to say. Kim, I need to have something
Right.
to say, right? And I wanted
Right.
to kind of get my arms around this. But in this one podcast I found, it was called Package Your Genius.
Oh, nice.
It was all about this idea that there is something that we all shine at. And Kim, 100 other people or 1,000 other people could you do, but don't do it the way that Kim does it.
Right.
Kim
Right.
does it. There's a light you bring to what you do that's different than the way anyone else does it. And
Yeah.
that was the genesis of this idea of package your genius. So anyway, that led me to this woman. I then was so excited about this idea that I bought her book and I started
Okay.
kind of filling out the questions. It was all to help you kind of uncover what your genius is. And I just started writing things down. I started to just be much more quiet. I started cooking in silence and doing the dishes, etc. And all of this, and mind you, I did do the panel and that was all great, but I got on this personal journey. And one day I was meditating, Kim, and I heard two words that I will never forget, Reinvention Rebels.
Wow.
Well, obviously, as you know, that's the name of my podcast. I didn't even know what that
Right.
meant at the time. And right. And I remember I'd even said, oh, one thing I can never do is have a podcast. I mean, I love podcasts, but I can never be a podcast host. I don't even know why I
Right.
thought that because, I mean, honestly, any of us could be podcast hosts.
Well, a
It's
lot of people have
right.
to get over those hurdles of fear of being in front of a
Yes.
camera. I don't
Right.
know if you've had that
Exactly.
fear or not, but
Well, my podcast is actually all audio, so I don't do video the way that you do.
yeah.
And so I guess it's a little easier. And I do a ton of speaking. I've always done a lot of public speaking. So anyway, needless to say, Kim, as I was searching and thinking about like what I meant to do, in my most recent incarnation before this, I had been a health coach, and I had worked with mostly midlife women, and so I knew that I was inspired by midlife women, and I wanted to do something around that. I wanted to somehow inspire them, and I knew being myself in sort of perimenopause. I was beginning to see the changes that we all go through when we get to menopause, our bodily changes, hormonal changes, mindset change, the many things that happen as we go through this major transition.
Yeah.
And and I also started to see just how women are viewed, aging women in our society, which I know you know. It's not like it's a
Mm-hmm.
secret, right? How
Right. Right.
our value in the eyes of society declines as, we go through things. So I just got this idea that I wanted to do something that could inspire midlife women, midlife and older about what's possible, because that's how I felt. I was looking for inspiration. I wanted to see new possibilities.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought, what if I talk to women who have actually reinvented to see what was their secret? What did they do? How did they do it? How did they overcome limiting beliefs and the larger societal beliefs about what the world tells us we can and should be as we age as women? How did they overcome those limitations and then
Right.
start to shine. So that is literally how it got started. And I didn't know anything about podcasting other than being a listener. I didn't know how to start a podcast. I didn't know what equipment you needed.
Yeah.
I didn't know I didn't know anything about editing. I didn't know any of that. But I just said, Wendy, you are resourceful and you can figure it out. So I
Yes.
trusted myself that I would be able to figure that out. And
Yep. That's
and
the
and
same
that's
thing with me.
yeah. And that's literally how it got started. That I
Wow.
just had this kernel of an idea. There was like a little teeny tiny idea. And that was, I don't know, it was probably 6 years ago. That it was probably in the fall of,
Wow.
I think it was in the fall of 2019 that it started
Right.
percolating, but I didn't start it until the following fall of 2020.
What are your fears or doubts or do you still have any? Do you still have fear and doubts that
Mm.
you need to overcome? Or what were your fears and your doubts at the time, like 6 years ago? Was it that you didn't know what equipment to get? Were you apprehensive about asking questions, personal questions maybe to your guests? What were those doubts and fears that you had or still have today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think my doubts and fears today are different than they were then. I will say that number
Yeah.
one. But I'll get to that
Yeah.
later. But in terms of starting the podcast, one of my biggest fears was, will anybody listen? That was my number
Mhm.
one fear. Like, am I going to do all this and nobody's going to listen? Like, how do you even find an audience? And
Yes.
because there are other people that there are other women podcast hosts that talk about reinvention. So what would make
Yeah.
my podcast different?
Yes.
And something that people would want to listen to. So I think that was my biggest fear. I do feel very confident in my ability to, because I've done so much interviewing of people in other realms and so much public speaking. Like I felt, and I also used to be a voice actor. So I felt good about using my voice. That was way back like in
Oh,
the 90s. So it's been a
oh, okay.
while, but back in my past, I did do that. And so I felt confident about my voice per se
Hmm.
and my
Right.
ability to ask questions and listen. But it was about like, how do you even build an audience? And how do you
Right.
find these people when there are like
Right.
2 million podcasts out there?
I know,
And
right? I
right?
know. It's
So
discouraging sometimes for me, but
I
I'm just
know
doing this as a ministry and just helping others. So it's like, well, whoever sees it or whoever hears it, so be it. It's
exactly.
only been since March. So,
Oh, so that like you're doing great.
oh,
You are
thank
doing
you.
great. Only since March. Wow, I'm very impressed. I'm
Thank you
very
so
impressed by that.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Yeah. Well,
fantastic.
it was born out of pain. That's how I wasn't looking at all. I was in a challenge on another community, very popular community website, and I was in a challenge, the Do the Thing challenge. I'm not sure if you're aware of it with
No.
Stacy Lauren. And
Uh-uh.
we talked about certain things and a podcast came up and I'm like, I'm not interested in that. But then I started thinking, well, in the same breath, at the same time that we were talking, I'm like, no, actually I am because out of pain, I need to get this out. My life is over because I'm an empty nester. I have some estrangement in my family. And what am I going to do? What do I do now? How do I reinvent myself? Which is another reason why what you're talking about with the reinventing and everything, we need that at our age. We can't just sit back. We're retired. We're no longer working. Our kids are gone, whatever it is. And now what? I mean, we spent
Yes.
all of our lives on other people and we haven't spent enough time on ourselves. And so I just started thinking, you know what? This is a great audience for me to speak to. What do you do for reinventing yourself? What are you doing that's different? Now everything is different. Everything has changed. So that's where it was born out of pain and also out of desire to reach other women, like what you're doing. Um,
Yes.
and I've been reading about what you're doing, and you are such a huge influence, and people are so enlightened and encouraged by, being on your podcast. And so I was like, wow, I want to be like you. You're my hero.
Oh, that's so
So my next
sweet.
question is like, what surprised you the most when you began interviewing women who had reinvented themselves? Like, what was your biggest surprise about it?
Mm. I would say that my biggest surprise, and it probably shouldn't have been, but I felt like it was so powerful, is just how courageous and fierce women are. But I
Hmm.
already knew that on some level, but to hear women who are older, who have just some of the things you mentioned, the challenges you mentioned, becoming empty nesters,
Yeah,
marriages that break up or jobs that change or losing jobs or all the things. Plus, then the layer of, that sandwich generation where you've got kids, whatever age they are, and you're in midlife, and you've also got your parents,
that's right.
and just
Yep.
that whole level of that comes with caring for aging parents, which,
Yes.
nothing prepares you for this. I mean, and we
No.
all have such unique circumstances, but it's just very difficult, as I know you know.
Yes.
And I think that I was really struck by the courage that these women found. And their stories are also different. They
Yeah.
they completely vary, but just an example is this woman who I met on Instagram. Her name is Natalie, and when she was 59, she retired early. She had another career, but then became a teacher later in life.
Hmm.
And just decided that she wanted to retire early. So she didn't, and she wasn't there long enough to have like all this retirement the way you would if you've been a teacher for 30 years. But
Right.
she was a huge planner. And she had decided when she turned 59 that she was going to retire early, and she completely downsized. And she was so methodical about downsizing her life because she knew she wanted to one travel, and she never traveled by herself before, and that she had this inkling that she wanted to move somewhere else to retire. So
Hmm.
she set about going on this trip for 3 months just with a carry-on suitcase. It was her going to 7 different countries around the world.
Oh my gosh.
And, a lot of them she didn't speak the language. Like she went to Japan and
Wow.
Indonesia. I mean, it's not like, there's necessarily a ton. I mean, there's some English speaking, but it's not like if you go to Europe, at least the alphabet is familiar. If you go to
Yes.
Japan, it's characters that
Yeah.
I don't know what
All
that means
different.
at all. Right. So you can kind of figure some things out if you're in Spain or France or, it's just so anyway, she goes on this trip and she had started in Portugal and she had ended up spending a month in Portugal because she had this idea she wanted to move to Portugal. She'd done all this research. And I was really inspired by her because one, and at the time I interviewed her, she hadn't even moved yet. She was just in, kind of the beginning stages, but she was talking about this trip she went on where she just really trusted herself and it took courage. It took
Yeah.
courage to plan
And a
this
lot of
out,
investment
right?
financially if you're going to be traveling for 3 months.
Yes, for 3 months. So
Yeah.
she like worked it out and she's gone on to move to Portugal. She's lived there now for almost 3 years
Nice.
and is loving it. And it just is like, and is totally embraced, learned Portuguese, lives in a Portuguese
Oh,
uh,
oh, wow.
there's a lot of expats that are in Portugal. And so she knows many of them, but she lives more among the people. And
Yeah.
I just thought that takes so much courage though, to get out and
Yes.
say, I'm going to do this thing I want to do. And I think the thing that strikes me, and you mentioned it a little earlier in our conversation when you said, we spend so much time on other people.
Yeah, we do.
All have done this. Women, whether you have kids or not, whether you have your parents still or not, we've all been there where we are the caretakers or we are the whatever. We're always taking care of other people and we're not putting the focus on ourselves. And I think the through line that I see in all of these women is that they decided I matter, that
That's
what I
right.
want matters, that my desires are important.
Yes. And it can be born out of pain or sadness. You get to the point where you're either going to get better or you're going to give up. And so when you have that choice, what are you going to choose? I mean, there's only two roads. You can either give up or just stay stagnant and keep on deteriorating, brain and body,
Right.
spirit, whatever it is,
Yes.
or you can go for it and live your dreams that you thought were gone. Because I know for me, my dreams were gone. I never got to do what I wanted to do, and but I did, but my dreams changed. And then I did end up being a mom, and being married and all of that instead of having like a big career, but then went back into a career. So I flip-flopped around a little bit, but
Hmm.
I'm talking originally, when you're a
Yeah.
20-year-old and you have all these dreams, you know,
Yes.
and they never came to fruition, but my second set of dreams did. And then when those go away and those are fulfilled and those are gone, now what? So that's, yeah, now what? So this
Now
lady you're
what?
talking about, she took it upon herself to just do it. And that's my
Yes.
mantra, is just do it. You know, there's so much fear, and oh well, I don't know if I could do that. Well, for her, she could have said, well, I don't speak Japanese. I'm afraid of the culture. I don't know what they're going to think of me. What am I going to look like? But she did it. She was bold and brave, and she just did it. And that's so encouraging to
Wow.
me and to so many of our listeners. If you have that dream that you want to travel and you have the resources and the finances to do it, but fear is keeping you back. Well, the only thing keeping you back is that fear. And so you need to learn how to conquer that. But that's a beautiful
Yeah.
story. Thank you for sharing that. I think that was going
Yeah.
to be one of my other questions in the future. So if I repeat, please
No
remind me.
worries. No worries, no worries. And I'll also just add on to that story that I know at one point on her trip, she had a total meltdown. Like she was in, I can't
Oh,
remember what country, like it can be overwhelming.
yes,
Traveling can be joyful
yes,
and fun, but it's also a lot of work, especially in
yes,
places where you don't speak the language or the culture is so different. It's one thing to
yes.
go to Mexico, where there's a lot of English speakers, or somewhere else, the Caribbean, everyone speaks English. That's one thing. But to go to a place where the
Right.
culture is so different. So at one point she had this total meltdown. And I think it's a reminder to me, because then of course she pulled herself back together, but it's a reminder that we can try things and they might not always work out at first. We may fail. But we can
Yeah.
always get back up again. And sometimes I need a good cry, Kim. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
A good
Yeah.
cry is very cleansing. You know how sometimes you just like bottle it up and then it just comes out, but then you actually feel better after you let it out. And you have your
Yes.
meltdown and sometimes your pity party. And sometimes I'm like, "Whoop,
Yeah. Yep.
I'm feeling sorry for
Been
myself,
there, done
self-pity.
that. Happened
Right.
last night.
You
Happened
know,
this morning too.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
know, you
Somebody
know.
sent me something just at the right times. A friend sent me something in Messenger, and I watched the video and I just started bawling, and I sent back a message and said, "How did you know I needed this today?
Mm.
I actually really needed this today. Thank you so much." And so, you know, it is a release, and God made us that way, because I mean, the
Yes.
only other reason we cry tears because it's releasing stress. It really is.
Yes.
And so we need to have a good cry. But in
Yes.
regards to her traveling, also my first thought would be, oh, I don't want to go alone because I don't
Yeah.
want to get, hurt or attacked or whatever. So that in and of itself is bravery to travel
Yes.
alone. I don't even want to go, like, I'm originally from Maine and I live in Florida right now. I've
Oh,
been here since 85. I
okay.
miss my home, but I don't even want to travel alone from here to Maine. So that is, I don't even want to get on a plane, but I do. Um, but there's these little fears and stuff. And I think
Yeah.
that as you do get older, though, as you do get older, I think that you get a little bit more braver, because you know that you're midlife. And if you don't do it now, you're not ever going to
Yes.
do it. You're
Girl,
never
you
going
are
to do it.
speaking my language. That is so true.
Yeah.
And
So
I
just
also
do
think
it.
just do it. You're so
Just
right.
do
Just
it.
do it. And then when we see other people doing it, I think that, instead of sometimes I know in the past, if I saw someone doing something I wanted to do, I'd feel jealous. Well, they're doing
Yes.
that. And then,
Yes.
in midlife, I just see that as motivation. If someone's doing something and I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. If they can do it, I can do it too.
That's right.
So
I
a
feel
very
that
different
way too.
perspective.
Yeah, I felt that way when I was younger too, and I feel the same way now. And what I do want to ask you though, in regards to your interviews, um, are there common qualities or values that you notice among the women that you interview? I know you said everybody's different, and we are, but what are the common, like qualities or the values that you see? Are they, because, when I think about it, we are different, but we are also so much alike. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many familiarities out there, that I find with my peers and everything like, oh, you're going through that too? Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
I'm secluding myself because I feel like I might be going nuts because nobody else feels this way. And no, no, no. A whole bunch of other women feel that way. But
Hmm.
their journey is different, how they handle it is different. But we need each other in community
Yes.
because we are all in this together. So, what do you find are the common qualities and the values in the women that you interview?
There are several, and I'll start with the first one, which is self-permission.
Good
Self-permission.
one.
I, when I was younger, I used to always ask, "Well, do you think it's okay if I do this?" And I'm not sure about this, but there comes a point where we realize we don't need to ask anybody. Like we often have a knowing, just like you had this knowing about like you wanted to be of service, that this is your
Yes.
ministry and you wanted to be of service. You had a knowing about this. You didn't need to ask someone, should I do this? Do you think it's
Yeah.
okay? You just like trusted yourself
Yeah.
that you're getting this message for a reason and that
Yes.
you should follow that. So I think that's number one. And in fact, I think this interview that I did with Natalie was about the theme of it was self-permission,
Oh,
allowing
nice.
ourselves to do the things that excite us, that inspire us, that pique our interest, that we're curious about. So,
Yeah.
so one common theme is definitely self-permission, that these women have all said they feel empowered.
Yes. Yep.
Number two, self-trust.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to learn the skill to like trust myself about many different things. I mean, there have always been some areas where I've excelled at things and I felt really good and confident, but then other areas were not so much.
Yeah.
And I think that women stepping onto what I like to call center stage, where they
Mm-hmm.
believe in themselves. So this sense of self-trust and self-belief. Or when we're
Yes.
younger, we question ourselves, we're not as confident, where we just feel, just feel better about ourselves and our own skin. I think part of that comes from experience and wisdom and aging.
Exactly. But
As
it's
much as
all
we,
the same. It's all the same experience. See, we all
yes,
feel that way. And that's what the
yes,
commonality is. That's what unites us is that we all get to that point where we feel that way. And that's the beauty of what you and I are doing right now, reconnecting with our people. And
yes.
it's awesome because I really didn't, a year ago today, I had absolutely no idea that there was anybody else out there feeling. I just thought, oh wow, look at her. She's got her life is all made and nice and thin and all of this stuff and thinking, oh, poor me. And it's like, you know
Yeah,
what? No, no, we all have a different journey. I had medical issues, and which caused me to gain weight and then I lose weight. And so we all go through these different
we
cycles
do.
of life and we have to give ourselves permission to be who we are. We don't have to be like them or anybody else, but we can join in unity and celebrate that we are a lot alike, but we have a lot of those commonalities, and but we're doing different. That's what we're doing. We're doing different in our lives. So I love that. I think it's beautiful. And boy, I think I'm glad that I'm 60. What about you? Do you think,
Me
are you happy you're
too.
60?
I am. I have to say that well, first of all, I don't even feel like, I don't know what 60 is supposed to feel like, but I feel very good in my body. But I also, I also spend a lot of time taking care of my body. So I
Yeah.
think I feel
Yeah.
good because I put a lot of effort into it. Because you know how it is,
Yeah.
as we age, it's not like, back when we were 20 something, it's like, I think I want to lose 5 pounds. And in a week
Yeah.
or so, you'd be like, and you know how it is. It's
Yeah.
not like that at this age, but it's okay. Like
No.
I'm just appreciating that, and also that it's a privilege to reach this age when we know many people
Exactly.
who didn't have
Exactly.
the opportunity to do that. So I feel like it's a privilege to be able to be 60, and
That's
I'm
true.
grateful for that. I am grateful for
Yes.
that. And I also want to, really, I'm just thinking about how can I take care of my body because I want to live a long, healthy life. I don't want to have a long life where I'm, not healthy. Who wants that?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that means I got to put the effort in. I have to think about what I eat, what I put in my body, how I use my body, how I, etc. So,
Right.
and, but so I feel like it's kind of like another job though, Kim.
Yeah. Oh no, it is. Oh, I'm a herbalist, and so I have my own gardens, and I make my own teas and my own home
Oh,
remedies, and I'm also an artist, so I paint and everything. But that's how I reinvented myself, and it's not that I even it just happened. It just I woke up one day and just started painting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can paint. Like I didn't watch a YouTube video or anything. I just started painting, and it
really?
was during COVID. It was during the COVID lockdowns.
Wow.
And so if there's anything good came of that, it was rediscovering that I'm an artist, that
Wow.
I can paint. And
That's
I learned to play
amazing.
guitar. I learned to garden. Um, and now the podcasting, and there's so much more. I mean, it's been so busy, and it's amazing. A year ago I was in the hospital. And so, and now I'm doing so much and packaging my teas. And so I'm really
Wow.
enjoying life right now. Yeah. And so, but I've got a long way to go with getting healthy again, but I am a
Okay.
health freak. It's just when you got medical issues and the
Yeah.
doctors put you on
Mm-hmm.
medication,
Mm-hmm.
that's where you
It's
start
hard.
going down. And so that's what
Yeah.
led me to do. I'm making my own medicine. I'm going to have my own apothecary. And
Mhm.
that's what I do. And so I have my own capsules, my own herbs, my own tinctures and infusions, and so I'm taking care of me. It doesn't act as quickly as the magic pill that the doctors give you, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to be consistent. Like you said, it's hard work to get
Yeah.
your body healthy. And so with that, yeah, that's what I do too. But how have my next question, how have the stories that you've shared changed your own perspective on aging? I know that you touched a little bit on it. Um, your purpose, the possibility, your possibilities of what you can do. And is there a particular one? Well, you already did mention the lady that was traveling. What about, so we've already touched base on that, but what about um, has anything through your interviews changed your perspective on something else that we didn't touch upon today? Is there a perspective change in you?
Yeah, there is definitely. And
Yeah.
I will say that, I didn't have a lot of expectations when I started the podcast. I just said I just felt like that was my mission, just like you feel
Yep.
like this is yours, right? That was my mission to do this. And I just so excited about it. Lit up about helping elevate, celebrate, elevate, and illuminate women that
Yeah.
don't always get the
Yeah.
attention. And so I I have to say that um I it's reminded me what's happened for me, I would say, is that it's reminded me, even though I had some inkling of this beforehand, I think I've
Yeah.
seen up close now that I've interviewed so many women, I've seen this idea in action that anything is possible when we decide it can be.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And
Yep.
well, before I was like, oh, sure, I could do whatever. Now I really, I feel it inside. I believe it. And I
Right,
think
because you've
that's
seen so
what's different
much.
because I've seen so
You've seen
much.
so many of these women, you've heard so many testimonies. So
Yes.
yeah, it's no doubt that, that you would feel that way, and even yourself feeling empowered by just interviewing these wonderful women. It empowers us as we are interviewing and showcasing their voice,
Yes.
and it's just a
That is
cycle.
it. Wendy,
Yeah, I
I mean, I'm
love
calling
it.
you Wendy. Kim, you said it. You hit the nail on the head that other women, as much as it's inspiring, for me to do the podcast, it's so inspiring to see their stories. It's so inspiring
Yeah.
to see what people have overcome. It's so inspiring. And it's it's every kind of story you can imagine. And
Yeah.
so I
And just getting
just
their voices heard is
right.
is victory. you
Yeah.
know let's get their
Yes.
voices out there. Because I don't want other people to get stuck like I was. I have a couple of friends that are stuck, and they don't go on YouTube. They're not social media people, but they're stuck and they're giving up. And
Yes.
I hate to see that, and I'm in contact with them every day and try to encourage them the best that I
Yes.
can. But that's what my podcast is about, is getting everybody's voices heard that wants to come on, but solely for the purpose of encouraging others. You know, it's like
I do.
a domino effect. You encourage other people, they encourage other people. It just keeps
Yeah.
snowballing. And next thing you
Yes.
know, we are going to have a generation of 60-year-olds that are confident and healthy and empowered. And it
Yes.
is growing.
Yes.
And I have a friend that's, my goodness, I think she's in her late 60s, and she's an author, and she's on Instagram and TikTok. And I think she got over like 200,000 followers, and she never thought that that would ever happen. Yeah.
Amazing.
So it is. It's really
Amazing.
amazing. So let me ask you this, Wendy. What feedback have you received from listeners or guests that has reinforced your drive to continue in it, like to just keep going? Have you
Yeah.
received any good feedback at all from any of your guests?
So much feedback from both guests who have been on and also listeners. Like so much feedback from people who listen, who have been
Yeah.
inspired, who write reviews, or they are on my mailing list. And then, I'll send something out, like I have a weekly newsletter, and they'll write back to me and
Oh,
say, oh,
wow.
this really inspired me. So I've gotten feedback in so many different ways. And I do a lot of also public speaking around
Hmm.
reinvention. So I speak at conferences, that kind of thing. And I just get a lot of feedback that people feel inspired, they feel motivated, they can
Hmm.
see new possibilities. In fact, here's an interesting story for you to illustrate this point, Kim. I mentioned earlier that I work at Yale, that I have this day job, and in my day job I work in cybersecurity. But
Okay.
a couple months ago, we have an employee newsletter at Yale, and a couple months ago they interviewed myself and a colleague who works in the Office of Development, and we're both podcasters in our free time, and it was about
Oh,
our passion for podcasting. And this one woman read the article and she reached out to me and she said, I am so inspired by your podcast. She's in her mid 40s, so she's not, I mean, the truth of the matter is people of all ages listen to my podcast. The target audience is sort of midlife women, 40, 50 and above, but younger women
right.
listen too. But I think she's 46, and so she wrote me this long email and she said, I just wanted to tell you how impactful your podcast has been for me as a woman who's trying to figure things out. And, she
Yeah.
listened to a whole bunch of episodes and wrote me this long, beautiful note. And, then said, I would love it if one day, you had time to get together for lunch. Then we met for lunch. And since,
Amazing.
we're right in town, like, nearby.
Yeah, that's
And it
great.
was just, I felt so good because, sometimes, Kim, the challenge is this work we do is great. But of course, sometimes, I have self-doubt. Sometimes I'm like, am I crazy? Does this even make
Oh.
sense? I mean, I'm doing this podcast and spending all this money. And of course, I'm not monetizing and I'm not making any money. I do it because I'm passionate about it and I love it. But
Me
I'm
too.
thinking, have I lost my mind? You start to doubt yourself. I'm like, is it even worth it? Like, and
Yeah.
so we need those reminders
Yes.
to help us remember the why we're doing this, and that we're not crazy,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
That we had this idea, and that was just one of those moments that was, you mentioned how impactful it was when you got this message today. That just the
Yes.
message you needed to hear. And that's happened to me too. It happened to me the other day. I was feeling really down. And I happened to like go on Instagram, and the first thing I saw was a Mel Robbins
Yeah.
video,
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
reel. It was her and Jay Shetty, and it was just the message I needed. It was just about let them
Yeah.
say what they're going
Just
to say.
let them.
And I thought
Yep.
I needed that in that moment. That is like the wisdom I needed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I
It's giving
believe,
yourself permission.
yeah,
When she says let them,
yes,
that's giving you permission. You're giving yourself, I mean, giving yourself permission to let them. Because
right.
we fight it. And I
We
didn't mean
fight
to
it.
interrupt you, but
No, but you're right.
when I heard her for the first time and heard her say, just let them, just
Yes.
let them. And don't hold it against them. Don't be bitter against them. Don't
Mm-mm.
punish them. Don't disown them or be estranged from them because they didn't know they didn't know what they didn't know. And
Right.
they couldn't be the parent or whatever, and they did the best that they could.
Mhm.
And so, don't disown them, don't hold it against them, but just let them be who they are. And so that was so freeing for me. And
Me too.
also in my situation, I pray for them because that releases the stress on me to
Yeah.
try to have to fix or to change. The worst thing that we
Yeah.
can do is try to fix somebody. And so I'm
I
sorry I
agree.
interrupted you. I hope
Oh,
you
not at
didn't lose your
all.
train
Not
of
at
thought.
all. No, no, no. But I think that, all that just to say that I feel it's a reminder for me when I hear from people that I am making an impact. Because sometimes we
Yes.
forget and we get all wrapped up, and it's like, I'm not sure anymore. And I think even on Instagram, like I just spend a lot of time just, sharing things that I think are inspiring, or my wisdom, or, little bits from people that are guests. And I always feel good because I feel like I can be my authentic self. And I think
Yes.
and that's one of probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned is that where other times I've reinvented myself, it was all trying to kind of make things work. I don't know, to try to figure out, like, I didn't like my job, so let me do something else. So that's how I became a health coach. Maybe it was running away, where now I feel like I've found the thing that lights me up where I can be my authentic self. And I feel like
Right.
this has been my best reinvention ever, to step
Yeah.
into this place where I feel so good and so confident and like
Yeah.
doing what I'm meant to do. Even if I don't make any money, it's doing what I'm meant to
Right.
do. And
Same. Yeah.
and I feel really good about that.
And it's like therapy. It really is. It's like therapy for us because I mean, we're talking to other people who are encouraging us, and then other people are listening to the podcast and they're being encouraged. And like I said, it just trickles down like a domino effect. Hey, did you hear Wendy Battle's podcast? Reinvention. It's incredible how it's catching on. And I'm amazed because there are a lot of podcasts out there um for reinventing and for women doing different and stuff like that. And sometimes that will intimidate me.
Yeah.
Sometimes that will stop me and say, like when you were saying, should I keep doing this? I'm thinking, who's ever going to listen to this? And why am I doing this? And nobody's, how many followers do I have? I have hardly anybody, maybe 30. What am
It's
I
okay.
doing? I
Yeah.
have such a story to tell and I want so many people to
Yes.
hear it. And now, I was able to get it out to a lot more people when I was connected with another social media community, but I've gone solo. So this is my baby now. And so I'm really happy about that. But anyway, back to you. Um, have you been able to witness any ripple effects just because somebody was listening to a particular show of yours, particular podcast, like we were talking about? It's a domino effect, it's a ripple effect. Have you actually witnessed that at all? Do you know, like, somebody who listened to your podcast and said, hey, I sent it to and so was going to give up, and they, when they heard this podcast, they were like, oh my gosh, I can reinvent myself, I can do something different with my life. Has that ever occurred?
I don't know if anyone has ever told me about them sending it to someone else and then that person having an epiphany, but certainly people have told me that have listened
Okay.
that they have had epiphanies from
Right.
people I know who have told, and it's so funny that you mentioned that because this one woman who ended up being on the podcast, I don't know if I've heard about the podcast because we have a lot of mutual friends in common, but I didn't know her. I knew a little bit of her, and she said that she listened to one of the episodes and it really motivated her to many different degrees, but to get some kind of degree or certification. And she said, "Well, I did that
Oh,
because I listened to your podcast, and it just gave me this spark." And
yeah.
then it's funny because one day I I was in the grocery store. This is a couple of years ago, and this woman kept looking at me. It was like our local. And then she came over. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I really want to introduce myself. I hope you don't think this is strange." But she said, "But like, I'm such a huge fan of yours. I've
Oh
listened to your
my.
podcast." This is the woman who, said she then got this certain, that's when she told me the story. And she's this amazing person who has subsequently been on the podcast
Wow.
um, and just is an amazing human being. But it was so funny because I just, I don't, I'm just like a normal person. I'm just like an everyday person. I'm not
But
some
you're making a
celebrity or anything.
difference. You're
Yeah, I
making a
get,
difference.
yeah, yeah. So
And
that's what
and
that made
they
me
are
feel
going to
like.
tell, they're going to tell their friends. And and this is,
Yes.
I mean, you've been doing this for 5 years, so there has to be a trickling effect, and other people are listening too. And and someday, that ripple effect, it'll come back to you,
Yeah.
and you will reap the blessings, and you will reap the benefits of it. So keep on doing what you're doing. I think it's
Yeah.
awesome. In regards to societal views, I want to turn it to that now. In a society of ageism, and
Mm,
I mean, I don't really
yeah.
like that term, but in a
True
society
though.
of ageism that often undervalues our age and wisdom in women, what challenges have you witnessed or experienced personally? Have you experienced any? I mean, for example, um, I was at a parade yesterday locally here, and there was an elderly woman sitting not too far from me, and she had to go to the bathroom. And you don't want to lose your spot. She did have a chair, and but when she came back to the bath from the bathroom, there was a group of teenagers that had sat in her chair, that was encircling her chair. And I don't know, I don't recall that she was with anybody. I think that she was alone, and she was older than we are. And she politely said, that's my chair. Can I please sit down? And they said, you don't know anything. You're an old woman. What do you have to say about yourself? Look how old you are.
Oh my
You're
gosh.
nothing. They were demeaning her so badly, to the point where one of them pushed her down, and then somebody called 911. And so that's an example of
Oh my
the
gosh.
the generation today. And I'm not saying the entire generation,
Of course.
but the generation today seems to lack, even more so than past generations, in my opinion. I mean, it's always been, it's always going to be. But today, they don't value elderly women, and elderly men for that
Yeah, right.
matter.
Period. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel really hurt when I see something like that happening in my community. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, "Well, I want to go to bat for her. I'm going to go and defend this woman." But then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, I'm not that much. I'm not. I'm not that far away from her age, they're going to beat me up. And I don't want to
Yeah,
get beat
right.
up. I
I
have
mean,
enough health
right.
issues, right? And
Yeah. And
so
yeah.
that's why I was asking in regards to, like if you've ever experienced anybody being disrespected like that, if you've been disrespected, I've been yelled at in the car to drive through, "Hey, old woman."
Mhm.
Um, it's hurtful and
Yeah,
it
of
just
course it
makes you
is.
feel bad about yourself. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so is that anything that you've, experienced or witnessed at all with anybody else or with yourself?
I haven't personally experienced that, thank goodness, because that's a
Thank
terrible thing
goodness.
that I don't want anyone to experience that, whether you're a man or a woman, anyone who's
Right,
older.
right.
And I can't think of off the top of my head, any specific stories from people I know, but I know, of course, it happens, as
Yeah.
you just described in such detail. And we live in a world, just generally in this country, where we don't value older people. There are
No.
many, many cultures and other parts of the world where older people are revered, where
Yeah,
older people live with the family. It's very
that's
familial
right.
focus. We're so focused on ourselves and
And they put
doing
the
our
elderly in the
thing.
nursing homes.
We have a very close friend who's in a nursing home who's 93, and she has a lot of visitors because there's a whole crew that we come and visit her regularly. But so many people over there have so few visitors.
It's really sad.
And it's very, very sad. So it certainly is everywhere, just the whole ageism. And I certainly see it in the workplace. So I see ageism,
Uh-huh.
you get to a certain age. I think for me, it manifests, I see a lot of that. And I haven't personally experienced that myself. However, one of my very, very close friends, who's a couple years older, so she's 62, had lost her job and has been looking, and she was replaced by someone who was literally like half her age for a
Uh-huh.
lot less
Yep.
money, I'm sure, which is such a typical thing that happens when you get to be a certain age. So I see it alive and well, especially when it comes to employment.
Yes.
And, she feels like she has to dye her hair and she has to and she looks incredibly youthful. Like she does not look, I mean, what does 62 look like anyway? But she does,
Right.
she looks like she could be 40 something. But still, it persists
And
when someone looks at your resume,
yes,
and
exactly. And
so,
it's so hurtful. It's
yeah.
so hurtful. And my husband went through that where he was working a job and they fired a bunch of them, but they hired young college students that came in for half the salary.
Yes.
And that was years ago. We're talking that was when he was in his 40s. And
Mm.
so yeah, it's really, really sad that there is this ageism going around. What culture changes do you hope that your podcast inspires regarding respect for midlife and older women? What's the cultural change that you hope
Mm.
will inspire other people or, regarding what we're talking about with this
Yeah.
midlife?
I really hope that the work I do and so many other women that do things like we do, there's just such a community of midlife women who are trying to raise and elevate messages about what's possible. And I hope that all of us collectively can help turn the tide.
Yeah.
Not even just me
Yeah.
personally. I'm just one piece of this bigger puzzle. And I think it takes all of
Yes.
us doing this work that we're doing that we feel so moved and
Yeah.
inspired by, how we want to make a difference. It's how we can add value to this world. So I'm hoping that our collective work to raise awareness about the
Yes.
value of midlife and older women, that we slowly start to see things change. And I will say, despite all the ageism, which we know exists and will probably always exist, I think
Always. Yep.
at the same token, Kim, I also see a little softening of some things, as in you see more older people in commercials, and not always necessarily just for drugs.
Yes.
There's all
Yes, I
that,
know, right? Or help, I've
right?
fallen and I can't get up.
Right. But I'm seeing that there are ads where there are more people, more older people, they're just becoming more part of the conversation. There was something I saw on Instagram, and it was some company was doing this whole thing about, you know, people that are aging, but in positive ways. And it featured all these people, and I just see, and in fact, I saw someone I interviewed. Her name is Diane Britt Smith, and she, had a career as a TV producer, then started getting in front of the camera, and now she does a lot of. She's an actor, but
Oh,
not a stage actor or film or TV, but really more commercials.
yeah.
And because she said even when she was growing up, she loved commercials. Most people are like, well, when we finally got DVRs and we could fast forward through
I
the
know, right?
commercials, it was like the
Yeah.
best thing ever. She said she
Right.
always loved commercials. So just yesterday, I'm watching something and I don't remember what the ad was for, but there she was. It was just a quick glimpse of
Oh
her.
my.
And I thought, I love the fact that we're seeing, because also people know that people that are older, especially like 50 to 65, 70, people often have more money. Not that everyone has money, but
Yeah.
just often more, certainly more disposable income than young people that, are just getting
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
And so people are catering to us. And so I think that if we can keep this progression, as much as we, try to fight ageism, that we can start to see more of us represented, older people represented. You see the Andy McDowells of the world, with gray
Yes.
hair in ads. And
I
I think
know.
even just gray hair acceptance becoming
Yeah,
just a thing. It's not like, before it used to be, oh my God, you've got gray hair. Now it's like people wear their gray hair proudly.
that's right.
Yes.
That's
So
right.
I
It
think that,
represents
right, it
it
represents,
represents wisdom. It represents wisdom.
yes,
It's
you
our
know,
crown.
it's our crown and we don't have to be afraid of it or ashamed of it. And I think I see
Right.
that starting to change.
Yeah.
And so I see that there's like, I feel like, the ice is thawing a bit on this and that we're seeing some positive, slow but positive changes.
Yes.
And so I'm taking that as a good thing, and I think our collective work can only help that.
Exactly. And I agree with that too. And there's already ripple effects and everything from what we're doing. And so, in regards to advice, what advice do you have for women who may feel uncertain, invisible, facing ageism, and hesitant about reinventing themselves? Somebody's sitting out there right now. I know you are. I know you're sitting out there, you're listening, and you're thinking, oh, well, that's all good for Wendy and Kim, but
Mm,
I can't do it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have the resources. I don't have the motivation.
Mm,
And there's a lot of excuses, some valid,
yes,
some not so valid.
yes.
So, what would be your advice for those who
Mm,
are feeling uncertain today and invisible?
mm.
Um, that's my big thing is I don't want people to feel invisible. Come,
No,
you know,
no.
let's hear your voice. I
Yeah.
want them to, I've made some positive impacts on a few that have been on my podcast that would never have spoken publicly on a camera
Mm.
or anything. And I've been told that it made a
Ah,
really big difference to
I
them.
love
So
that.
so
So you
that's a
see your
blessing.
impact. That is a
Yeah.
blessing. Your impact.
Yeah.
I think sometimes our impact is far greater than we think it is. I know that we tend to especially women, downplay our accomplishments. And
Yeah.
so in answer to your question, I think a couple I would offer a couple of pieces of advice. Um, One is to just tune into the things that you love to do,
Mm-hmm.
big or small. It doesn't have to be, it could be doing needlepoint. It could
Yes.
be, a passion for reading books and doing reviews. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be some
Yeah.
huge thing like moving around halfway around the world. It doesn't have to be like that. But I think that
Right.
we need to tune into what lights us up. So I think that's where we could get started. And literally, it
Mm-hmm.
could be making a list of what are the things I enjoy doing? What
Mm-hmm.
do I love to do? It doesn't have to be what you're good at, but just like what did I love doing as a kid? When I was a kid, yeah, when I was a kid, Kim, one of the things I loved, I remember getting a tape recorder, and I forgot what it was called, but it was red. And I just always loved talking. But I would, and I love to write. I always loved to write. So I would
Me too.
use this recorder and I grew up in New Jersey, so I was a big New York Mets baseball fan. And I would watch the games with my dad, and then I would write these stories about it as if I was a reporter, and I'd record them into my tape recorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, and so one of the things I look back and think about is I always loved using my voice.
Yeah.
And I think that one, there's something, we could all find some information just from that. So that's my first piece of advice. My second piece of advice for people, for someone who's feeling stuck, is to talk to a few trusted friends or colleagues or relatives. I feel like sometimes we have how we perceive ourselves, but other people often perceive us differently. We
Mm,
sometimes minimize what we like our accomplishments or what we've done or what we feel capable of, but sometimes we need a fresh perspective. And I'm talking about the naysayers of the world. We all have naysayers in our life. Well,
yeah.
Kim, are you sure that idea? I'm not talking
Yeah.
about those people. Not we what I call my Reinvention dream team, the people that support us, that encourage us, that remind us that we can do anything. Those are the kinds of
Right.
people I'm talking about. Talk to one or two or three of those people, whoever those people are, a sister, an auntie, a friend, could be anybody, and ask them to tell you where they think you shine.
Right.
Because
Right.
we sometimes need that outward perspective when we can't see it for ourselves. If we don't feel good about ourselves and what we feel like we can do, that's when we need to call in the troops. That's when we need
Right.
to call in reinforcements. That's when we need to
Right.
ask other people to help lift us up.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's different
And
than
in
listening
my
to our podcast because, right? Because then people are like, these are people that know you.
right. And the sad thing is a lot of people our age don't even know. I mean, they've never heard a podcast. I know that's
Right.
weird. I
But
know
it's
that's
not. And it's
strange,
true.
but
It's
I
true.
didn't know. I mean, I knew there were podcasts, but last year at this time, it was like, well, there's so many, which one do I listen to? I mean, I really need
Yeah.
to make use of my time. I need to make sure that if I'm going to cut out 30 minutes to an hour of my time, it needs to be a good one. I need to be motivated,
Yes.
you know. So there's
Yes.
a lot of people out there that they don't even have the tools or the resources. And that's my next question is, are there resources or communities that you could suggest besides our podcasts, for women who are seeking inspiration and support? Do you know of any resources out there or any
Well,
communities?
oh gosh, there's so many, but one of the things I'm a huge fan of, which I know you already know because you're in it too,
Huh.
is our friend Lillian. And
Yes.
and I love her Facebook group. I wish I had more time to actually post in the group because I always forget and I'm always so busy trying to juggle everything. But I love her group, women with sort of without partners, but it's a
Yes.
group of midlife women, and we're
Yeah,
all in such different places and spaces, but and just trying to figure out life. And I feel like this, Kim, is such a supportive community.
it
I
is.
I love this, and I have gone to some of Lillian hosts these different groups or like
Mhm.
sessions on
Yeah,
Zoom on different topics.
yes,
And I think it's a great way to meet other women and just
it is.
connect and
And I've
find your
met a couple
people.
myself, and Lillian's been on my podcast and has talked about her community group. And I've met a couple of women on there. I'm supposed to collaborate with one sometime
Oh,
in January.
awesome.
But it's really in regards, she's a nutritionalist, I'm an herbalist, so we want to try to get something together with the collaborating of that. But
I love
yeah,
it.
Lillian is amazing. And I met her on another popular community site. And that's how we kind of got to know each other. But I've grown a little bit more closer to her since she branched out and created her own group. And I really do enjoy her Zoom gatherings. And so I love it. So, yes, you could look that up. It's women with parentheses out, women with or without partners. So, but it's got the little out in the parentheses. So check that out, and that's on Facebook. So, well, Wendy, in closing, I just want to ask you, looking ahead, what are your hopes for the future of the Reinvention Rebels podcast?
Oh, such a good, juicy question to wrap up with. I love it, Kim. I want to continue to grow it. I'm in season 7. I arbitrarily come up with my seasons. So even though I've
Yeah,
only
I
been
was
doing it for
thinking.
5 years, it's like, when I first started out, a season was like 12 episodes, and then it was 16, and now it's,
Yeah.
so I'm all over the map, but I just feel so inspired. And my challenge is I have this full-time job and I don't have a lot of time. I have a lot of other things going on. And it takes time, as you know, to produce a podcast. And there
It
are so
does.
many amazing women that I want to interview. It's like I have this waiting list. I've got, all women and not time. So
Yeah.
but I can't stop. So I want to continue to do that and to grow it. I have a vision. And it's interesting because I've had this idea, even before I had the idea for the podcast. I've always thought that one day I'm going to have a TV show.
Oh, nice.
Now, I don't know what that means because, there's many different ways to do that. And I just know that I've done a lot of TV work from when I was a health coach. And I just
Mhm.
like naturally do it and it feels very easy to me and I love it. So that's, that's in my purview for the future. And again, I'm just being open to whatever. I don't know what any of that means, but when the time is right, I feel like things reveal themselves. I also, because I love speaking, I really want a mission in 2026 and 2027 to get on stages
To get on what
and
now was that?
on
Oh,
stages
stages like
to
TEDx
actually be
talks?
yeah, TEDx or speaking at conferences, women's conferences, with sort of a signature talk. That's like what that's in my future too. I don't know when that will
Right.
manifest, but I just know I have a knowing about that when the time is right also. So I'm just starting to kind of think about what would that look like, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. I used to be a radio DJ back in the 90s.
No
So I
way.
also love to speak. And I also worked at a television station for a few years as the programming secretary, and I was in charge of putting the programming on the air. So I love that kind of work too. But then marriage and children came.
Yeah,
So
I know.
that kind of took the back
Yeah,
seat. So, but I
right.
enjoy it. So I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. Well, that sounds really exciting about the future, of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. So I'm excited for you and I'm excited to keep following you. And I want you to know, Wendy, that it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. And thanks so much for creating space for women over 50 to share their stories on reinventing themselves. And for my listeners out there, if Wendy's story has touched your heart today, please share, like, and not only just my podcast, but share and like her podcast too, so that others can become empowered or to reinvent themselves. And please head on over to reinventionrebels.com. Is that correct, Wendy?
You got it, Kim. That is it.
Okay. And you can get more inspiration over there and you can get more empowerment over there too. So don't forget to tune in. And below in the description of this podcast, you will find Wendy's social media and website links that you can click on, as well as some of mine, my blog, and other things that I have going on too. And so thanks again, Wendy. And for the audience, do not forget, until next time, keep doing different. Bye bye.